Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our big stories, and we're contemplating that directive of President Mahama to the Inspector General of Police to investigate the 2020 and 2024 carnage, if we may call it that, the deaths recorded. We also want to wade into the issues, recent happenings in Ejura and Atebubu Amantim, and what exactly has been happening there, with some of the citizenry also taking matters into their own hands. And we'll also discuss general policing issues. Joining us in the studio, Peter Lanshini Tobu. He's Member of Parliament for Wawes. He's the former Executive Secretary to an IGP in this country, and now he's waded into politics. We also have Professor Kwesi Enim, Security Consultant, providing bespoke services in risk assessment. Both of them join the conversation. Let me say a very good morning to Prof. Very quickly. Professor Enim,
good morning to you and your listeners.
Thank you for joining the conversation.
I think this is the first time we are speaking also.
All right. Thank you. Sweetie?
Yes, Prof. Welcome.
So from Prof to
yeah. Although we do want to, get incisive with these issues, we want to start with maybe an overview in terms of this investigation that the president has asked that we get into what happened in the killings for 2020 to 2024. How do you feel about this directive coming now at this time?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Ben, and good morning, Susie. Let me also say good morning to my very good old friend, Professor Kwesi Enim. Good morning to His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, President John Dramani Mahama. In policing generally, every death is presumed to be murder until otherwise proven through investigations. So whatever happens in this country, if it has to do with the death of any individual, it is the sole responsibility of the police to investigate, and possibly, with the advice from the Attorney General, prosecutions might be instituted. If you look at what happens from 2020 to 2024 in relation to electoral violence and electoral killings, it falls within the mandate of the Ghana Police Service. In fact, it is the police that heads or lead the National Election Security Task Force. So when you have an operation in place and you are leading the operation and some infraction happen within the operation, you don't expect anybody to even come to direct you to do what you're supposed to do right. So I personally was believing that within 24 hours, after the directive from the president for the Inspector General of Police to initiate investigations into killings in 2020 and 2024, I was expecting that within 24 hours, the Inspector General of Police would have responded telling the president, Mr. President, actually we are not going to initiate. We are actually on course. And the Inspector General of Police, when he was appointed into office, he did something that was great. He created what we call the cold cases unit. Yeah. Cold cases unit because naturally, you can have cases that are as old as 10, 20 years, but they are not over yet until they are over. You can close the case and reopen it when you have fresh evidence emerging from any angle. So probably if that case had gone cold for whatever reason, tell the president, in fact, this matter is being brought to the front burner and we'll do the best that we can to give you an update within a week or two. But, this is a transition, and I'm very sure that the president is well briefed on the fact that the Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo government demonstrated lack of interest in these killings in 2020 and 2024. So, and I can tell you as a matter of fact, I think the Minister of Interior, then, Mr. Ambruderi, came to Parliament, and we asked him the question about the killings in elections. And he said investigations were on, but he concluded by saying that none of the investigation had been concluded. So the investigation was so inconclusive. And they've demonstrated lack of interest. So I am very sure that His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama, looking at what he told the Ghanaian people, and the fact that every Ghanaian life matters, it is better to start afresh. After all, we are resetting. This is a reset language. So he's directing the Inspector General of Police, please reset the investigations. Go to the beginning. Start afresh. Do what you know doing best. And I believe that the institution cannot let Ghanaians down.
Does that mean they're scrapping these inconclusive investigations and starting afresh, tabula rasa, no information at hand, going straight to the ground to now find information and all that?
His Excellency has given a presidential directive. It is for the police to do what is professionally required. If you think that you can factor in all information that you've gathered, or probably use the old record and build upon it and give him results, he doesn't care. What he needs is results. Right. But if you think that what you've done so far, you've actually done nothing, Go and start from scratch and do what you know doing best. Whatever it is, we want the results. We want the report. And want Ghanaian people to know that if you die in this country, the police are up and they will do what they know doing best and provide evidence to support the case, and probably whoever is held accountable can be put before the law court. So whatever it is the duty of the police. Can you start afresh as directed? Or there is something you can build upon. The president wants you to investigate the matter and give him definitive answers as to what happened. Who killed who? You know, these things, if you go to the detective training school, we call it investigations 101, 5 W's and 1 H. What happened? People were killed. Why did it happen? It happened in Ghana. You know the crime scenes. Why did it happen? It was during elections. Who is involved? You get to know. How it happened, you have to investigate that. And when you finish with all these things, 5 W's and 1 H, if you answer all these basic questions, you begin to build a docket that is worth reading by even an ordinary person who has no knowledge in criminal investigations. But I believe that, as I said, the then President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, His Excellency, showed no interest in the investigations. And there was not even one moment in his life as a president that he commiserated with the bereaved families. I am surprised that as a president, a Ghanaian dies, and you don't think that it's very important for you to commiserate with the families? But that is who we are as a people. And I think that the Ghanaian people have voted in 2024 to show their disapproval of the kind of leadership that we've probably gone through for the past 8 years, which President Mahama said in fact, we've watched a horror movie for 8 good years. We need to reset the country. And this is a language of reset. Please initiate investigations. And I want results.
Right.
But what would you call standard practice? I think that is part of what we want to know. Sweetie was asking about, I mean, if something has been done, do we build upon it? In other jurisdictions, and I'm intentionally saying this, you don't start afresh if you already have something to fall on. So you build on what you have. In some instances, they would say maybe the investigation was compromised in a way. So we want to start anew so we can gather new evidence. What is standard practice here? What would you expect?
What is standard practice in criminal investigations? When you start a case, it is possible you can get stuck somewhere along the line and you can just put the docket into the freezer. And that is why we created the cold cases unit. That case can be there for a year or two, even 10 years. And when fresh evidence emerges, you reactivate the matter and build a new team to go around it. Probably the investigator had retired, but you get new investigators with fresh evidence, and they will reactivate that case and investigate it to the end. That notwithstanding, I am saying that why would the president direct the IGP to initiate action, start afresh? He is privy to so much information. The government at the time was not interested in investigating these killings. And we believe that nothing substantial has been done. Let it be the duty of the police to come and say, oh, in fact, we've done a lot. We are not going to start afresh. We are going to continue from where we left off, but probably we are going to speed up. We're going to put more heat in this cold case and bring out more results. If that is what they say, fine. But if they have nothing to build upon, the best thing is to start afresh.
All right. The best thing may be to start afresh. Let me just bring in, Sweetie, let me bring in Prof. But before that, let me also say hello to former Deputy Attorney General Alfred Tua Yeboah. Good morning, sir. Mr. Tua Yeboah, if you can hear me, good morning.
Good morning.
All right. It's very good having you join the conversation. I'll be coming to you shortly. But before that, let's go to Professor Kwesi Enning as well, who joins the conversation. Prof, on the back of 2020 and 2024's happenings in this matter where we lost lives, is this the right direction? The president directing the IGP to investigate whether we have something or not, to start investigations into these matters. Is it the right step?
Well, it's the right step, and it speaks to the complaints and expectations of Ghanaians over the past 8 years. But the directive also opens up vistas and opportunities for how institutions must work. But let me say this, that I concur with Honorable Tobu 100%. if you read the directive, because the president and his team are aware of the cold cases unit, they've also directed that they use all the forensic tools and approaches available. As Honorable Tobu says, a case may be cold for years. The investigator, might have gone on retirement, but new scientific approaches and evidences may come to the fore that may lead us in particular directions. So on the technical side, probably that is all that I can say. But this letter has several implications. One is that other institutions whose performances were curtailed by undue political interference and threats can now use this letter or interpret it as a basis to get the job done. And there are several instances where institutions may have suspended, may have delayed acting based on their mandate. But I'm hoping that for those who are reading this directive, that there are two other aspects very critical that I think we need, or probably the IGP can then take the step forward to investigate. And I've said this several times. One relates to the extreme violence that took place at Ayawaso West Wagon, the subsequent institution of the Emil Short Commission, and the dismissive response to the recommendations of the Emil Short Commission report. Another issue that we need to bring up, and that must be investigated and given the same weight as the loss of lives, was the sacrilegious invasion of Parliament by uniformed officers. That to me amounted or was tantamount to an attempted coup d'etat. That was just prior to the election of the Speaker of Parliament to the 8th Parliament. So there are a lot of things around elections, electoral violence, that this directive seeks to bring under control. And I like the fact that it's also been extended to the violence around 2024. The importance of that extension is that when the violence took place, and here Honorable Tobu makes this very important point, that the lead institution for election security is the Election Security Task Force, of which the Inspector General of Police heads. But when the violence took place, all ministers dealing with security then suddenly turned around and were blaming the IGP for not doing, or the Ghana Police Service for not doing what they ought to do. But we know there were quite a number of countervailing instructions to other security institutions to act in ways that circumvented the Election Security Task Force. So, and I think one of the clauses in there talks about how security agencies acted during election 2024. So I think, finally, this gives an indication to all kinds of other institutions. Get up and be doing. You have your guidelines, you have your mandates, you have your vision and missions, deliver to the people of Ghana. But in the political circumstance, where it is neither written nor said, but there are indications that we will not tolerate an institutional leader behaving in a particular way and getting the job done.
Right.
Then of course, people become frightened. But this hopefully will bring an end to the franchising of violence as an investment into getting into public office. So
Prof,
this is a problem.
We have to move on to speak to the former deputy AG, but a quick thought. For me, I may be the only person, it's not directly elections related, but the death of Ahmed Hussein Swale, it's another one of those cold cases. It may not be directly related, but is that something else that maybe the IGP should be looking into? Just a brief comment on that, and then we move.
No, I think my point is clear. This directive basically says all institutions in Ghana funded and paid for by the taxpayers' money must do what they need to do. So murders elsewhere, court cases elsewhere, I mean, all cases that have basically been pushed under the table because of there are no logistics, there are no resources, we don't have manpower. The president is saying, get doing. Use what you've got to get the job done.
All right.
Let's speak to Mr. Tuayeboah now. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. Now, I know that as part of your responsibilities as Office of the Attorney General, although you're the deputy, you're supposed to be initiating and managing significant criminal cases on behalf of the state. These killings from 2020, and I might just add 2024, I believe have come to your attention. What did you do about it?
Thank you very much, my sister. Now, I agree with the comments by Prof. and then the Honorable Member of Parliament. When it comes to criminal matters, there's no limitation. And so if an incident happened 20 years ago, you can at any point in time go into it, investigate, and then come up with a line of action to be taken. With respect to the 2020 election-related deaths, the Ghana Police Service actually investigated the incident and now proceed to itemize what they did. Now, if you take the incident at Sablugu.
Mr. Tuayeboah, we'd appreciate it if you could just speak up a little more for us.
Thank you. Now, with respect to the incident at Sablugu, the police investigated the matter, came up with a docket. The AG's office in Tamale took up the matter. 2 individuals were arrested, statements taken from them, and then placed before a high court in Tamale. Now, the 2 individuals, if my memory serves right, are in the presence of Na Mohammed Ahmed and Honorable Abdullah Idris. I think he was the member of parliament for Sablugu. I don't know whether he's still a member. This matter went to the High Court in Tamale. The state called witnesses to prove our case. In fact, the matter started on the 15th of December 2022. The prosecution closed its case on 5th April 2023. Then on 31st July 2023, pursuant to an application by counsel for the accused person that they did not have any case to answer, the High Court on this 31st of July 2023 acquitted and discharged the Honorable Member of Parliament for Sablugu and ordered the other accused person to open his defense. Aggrieved by this decision, the state appealed against the ruling of the High Court. And this appeal was lodged at the Court of Appeal in Kumasi. The service of this appeal on the Honorable Member of Parliament has been very difficult because, you know, 7 sitting members of Parliament is always very difficult. And so what I can say is that that matter is live. and now it's pending at the High Court in Tamale as well as the Court of Appeal in Kumasi.
So your suggestion is that even now, before the Court of Appeal, that matter is alive. It's still going through court processes.
Exactly. It's alive because the first accused person is supposed to open his defense in that matter, and my checks revealed that, in fact, he mounted the box, but before he could do so, he fell ill. And on health grounds, the matter was adjourned. Now, on the second case...
So this is specifically on the Savelugu incident?
Yes, on the Savelugu incident.
Okay.
So I'm coming to the second one, the Rududio matter. In this particular case also, investigations were conducted by the police, CID. Some people were arrested. Caution statements were taken from them. And eventually, some people were charged. And if I'm not mistaken, 3 individuals were charged for the murder of those persons in that constituency. And you have a person, someone with the name Mau Nyakun. Then you have another fine Godfred, and then another police officer. 3. The case, as we speak, is pending at Criminal Court 1, Accra, for trial. In fact, trial in this case resumed. If I not say resumed, commenced in December 2024.
December 2024?
Yes.
Just past month, okay.
Yes, and the last day, because in case of murder, you have to do the committal proceedings. That's what I've just jumped it. Committal proceedings in that matter was done at district court in Accra, Jabin Court. Then they were committed to the High Court to stand trial. And the last day that they were in court was on the 2nd of December 2024. So that matter is also alive and is in court. Now the third one, which is the Techiman incident, Techiman South incident. Investigations were conducted into this matter by the police CID. A docket was forwarded to the AG's office in Sunyane. Our office in Sunyane perused through the docket and offered an opinion. And the opinion they offered was the fact that there was not enough evidence on the docket warrant the state to charge any of the persons named as suspects. But in furtherance of that, the AG's office directed the police to do further investigations into certain aspects of the matter in order to arrive at a conclusive decision on the matter. And some of the areas we looked at, because all the people, all the security officers who were invited and interrogated, they denied shooting to kill those people. The fact of the fact that people were shot is something that nobody can contest it. The fact that people were killed, nobody can contest it. But the issue is who shot and who killed. And that's the essence of criminal prosecution. You should be able to get evidence linking an individual to a specific act, leading to the death of an individual.
There is some, as far as Techiman South is concerned, there is some video evidence, and in there you'll see some military officers wielding weapons, some firing into the air or something of the sort. Did you come across this evidence as well? Were those people interrogated?
All the officers who were there on that day were invited and questioned. It is true that people were shooting into the air and others, but it takes a bullet to kill an individual. And so, who among these officers killed? Maybe victim A, victim B, or victim C. The answer to this will be unraveled. I mean, it is possible to get a ballistic report. After examining the body, the bullets that were picked, you can get a ballistic expert who examine the bullet that killed any of the victims and trace it to which police officer was within or was using that kind of ammunition. So these are the things that we directed the police to do. So that at the end of the day, you can get a solid docket and mount prosecution of this matter in court. As at 7th January 2025, at the time that we left office, they have not received the update on that matter. And so I'm for it. We are for it. This matter needs to be thoroughly investigated further. And even the other two, Rodiodio and then Stavlugu. If you have fresh evidence, if people are ready to offer evidence, that will also bring in a lot of people or will bring in things different from what we are relying on. I mean, that is better. Because impunity, yes.
Just by way of moving the conversation forward, is it your opinion that the pace at which these cases are being moved through due processes, like you say, also factoring in the fact that you don't have substantial evidence, you know, to establish who's gunshot who and all that, is that the best that you can do? Some of these killings go back, I mean, as far as 4 or 5 years ago. The pace at which it's moving, is that the best we can do, considering that lives were lost and people are looking for answers?
My sister, it's regrettable that lives were lost. Definitely, I will not endorse any situation where people will be killed and those perpetrators will be left off the hook. But when we go to court, we deal with hard evidence. And no prosecutor will want to go to court with watery or weak evidence. So that's the reason why when we review a docket, we make sure that all the areas that we are not comfortable with, we direct the police CID to go into it. Now, if you look at our system in Ghana, the Office of Attorney General does not have its own investigator. The AG's office relies on the police service and other state institutions to do the investigation.
Quick point there. Quick point before you go on. Are you saying then that the AG's office needs its own investigators? Is that what you're saying?
Moving forward, that is my view, and I've stated it elsewhere.
Okay. That
we should have an AG's office that will have its own investigators that the AG can control and then direct. Because we have it now, the police service is under the Ministry of Interior. They are not under the AG's office. It's only the police CID that we get in touch with them, direct them what to do. But technically speaking, they are not under the AG's. And so moving forward, if we were to have an AG's office with its own investigators like YOCO and OSP, it will help.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is that, the biggest challenge is evidence, right? The biggest challenge they have is gathering evidence enough to actually pin these crimes to those the perpetrators. But where does that leave us? If 4 years down the line, we cannot find concrete evidence to prosecute the criminals, because these people are criminals, where does that leave us?
So before we come into the studio, just to conclude on, because there are a few things in there. The criminal justice system is such that if you're going to hang someone for murder, the standards are pretty high, because you could be taking that person's freedom away from him or her. But Mr. Tiayeboa, just quickly, there also are in 2024 the issues of Nyankpala. There's also Damongo. There's also Ewutu Senya East in the central region, where one person died after the election in that constituency. Are these ones that you started processing following in any way before the elections?
On those incidents. And I think the police service should be able to give information as to what they've done so far. But my expectation is that investigations to have been commenced or to have been commenced long ago, just after the incident. And so I'll then support any call on the police service to expedite investigations into those incidents that happened in December 2024. But I don't have the update on the matter, because every life is very important. It matters not whether the person is the poorest among the poor, is tall, is short, a man, a woman, child, whatever. Every life is important. And that so far as someone's life has been taken away from him or her unlawfully, the person who engaged in that act must be brought to book.
And there's also the incident of Ahmed Hussein Swale. How do you feel about that?
Yes, it's a matter that has been long-standing. If you recall, the question was that in Parliament, the former Attorney General was posed to him to come and answer on the update on that particular matter. Investigations were conducted, but once again, we couldn't get enough evidence on the docket to commence prosecution. And so I would then support any call on the police service to do more. Because if you do not have evidence on an incident, though they say it may be regrettable, may be so worrying, as we have the Ahmed Swale matter, you cannot take the matter to court.
Right.
As citizens, I will call on all citizens to also volunteer information if they have it. After all, you now have the Whistleblowers Act, Witness Protection Act. If you even don't want to be identified, you can go undercover and give the information.
Right.
And so these are some of the things that I think as citizens we must all do to help us weed out all these criminals who do things and then goes unpunished.
Okay. Mr. Tuayeboah, just hold for us briefly, because there may be concerns from Lanshini Tobu and Professor Inning that you may have to respond to. Sweetie, would you like to bring us back into the studio?
Yes, let's get back into the studio. Sir, you've listened to the former Deputy Attorney General. I know you have some reflections. I was just asking, where does this leave us?
Yes, good morning, my brother Tuayeboah. I think he made a statement that I completely disagree. He believes that if the AG's office has its own investigations department, it could probably make the AG's office more effective. The truth of the matter is that we are looking at checks and balances as provided in the Constitution. Within the criminal justice system, the police has the responsibility to investigate. And of course, if the investigations are bad, prosecutions will never be successful, or probably you go to court and you are embarrassed because the docket is bad. And sometimes they return dockets to the police to do a better job. But that notwithstanding,
so you agree that sometimes the police fails to do a thorough job?
Exactly. It is a question of the competence or capacity of the Criminal Investigations Department of the Ghana Police Service. Whether it is through bad recruitment, it is through poor training, or it is through the lack of equipment or equipping the whole department to be able to perform well. But we should begin to look at the separation of powers and agree that when you look at checks and balances, if the police are more effective and they are even taken away from prosecution, I don't even like the idea of police prosecuting. Let the prosecution as designed by the Constitution to be the baby of the Attorney General. Police should take care of prevention of crime. And if the crime cannot be prevented and is committed, let's look at how we detect that crime, how we investigate it, how we build comprehensive dockets, and make sure that the prosecutions are successful. If we do it that way, I think that we are building both institutions. We are building the Ghana Police Service as an institution. We are allowing the Attorney General to have good dockets to prosecute. But if we carry the investigation role and add it to the prosecution role of the Attorney General, that would so much a weight, and probably gradually we'll get back to square one. What is it that dockets are not being properly built? What is it that investigations are not properly done? Let's go to the details and look at what we can do to make sure that the Criminal Investigation Department of the Ghana Police Service is a top-notch one. I mean, I can't remember any murder case that has been successfully investigated and prosecuted in the last few years. I can't remember one.
Well,
all the murder cases are gradually...
did say that, until you're in trouble, you won't appreciate due
Great.
process.
All the cases that we talked about now are all in the cold cases unit. Did we create the cold cases unit to bank cases that when it happened as a heinous crime, we just put it in there, it's gone cold? We don't have the capacity to be able to succeed in one single heinous crime like murder? It tells us that there is a lot we need to do. Looking at what the Criminal Investigation Department is today, we need to up our game and ensure that the Attorney General's Department can have better and professional prepared dockets to do prosecution for us.
So some people have said, though, that the police, when they are really interested in a matter, they will get to the bottom of it. In fact, the few incidents where we've had police officers themselves affected, it has been very swift in dealing with these matters. Is there a missing link?
I'm sure all of us know that if a case happened within a particular regime and the police are not working well, as look at what happened in Ayawaso West Wogon, you ask everybody and nobody seemed to be interested. You ask the commissioner CID and says, oh, we've not gotten anybody arrested yet. Techman sir, we've not gotten anybody arrested yet. Probably it is the politicization of these institutions that is gradually weakening their professional competence. If we take away the politicization and build stronger institutions, I think that all of us will come to benefit from the goodness of stronger institutions than looking at everything with a political lens. Murder is murder. It doesn't matter which political party you belong to. It could be you, it could be you. Whoever is murdered and whoever is the suspect, let the process run. Let's allow the criminal justice system to be a justice system for all. Justice for all and not for selected few. So if we begin to look at the police with a lens that, oh, if it happens in one breath, they are very professional. If it happens in the other breath, they are not so serious, to say the least. What it means, let's go and question them. What is the secret behind this? Do you really have what it takes to investigate these kinds of murders and you are not doing it? Okay, government has changed. It is no longer the MPP government that is in power. This is an NDC government. What you couldn't do, if you can do it, let's see how you can do it. Is it that you are really incapacitated because of certain things, or you are really incapacitated because of political leanings? Let's look at what they can do now. But I want to believe that we should cap it by saying, let's look at equipping and capacitating the Ghana Police Service to do what they know doing best, occupying that space with the mandate given to them by the Constitution to do their work right. And I think that the Minister of Justice and Attorney General Department will be able to collaborate, and Ghana will be a very peaceful place, that criminals will no longer have a place to hide.
Does that feed into the narrative of Mr. Tuayabwa that it's just a matter of evidence? So the Ghana Police Service does not have, they are not well equipped to gather evidence so that we can actually prosecute those who perpetrate these crimes. You were there. I mean, what's your experience of it? Are there gaps in there that really need our attention in order for us to actually get evidence and prosecute criminals?
The Ghana Police Service, like the Constitution, is a living institution. And crime is so fluid, so dynamic to the point that what used to happen in the 1970s or in the 80s, the crimes that you could to investigate so swiftly, these days, the criminals have gone so much ahead that the police need to up their game and back up their systems to be able to catch up. Crime has become more complicated. Crime has become more scientific. And the police must also become so scientific. The police must become a bit academic. The police must become a bit collaborative, getting people involved in criminal investigation. It's not just about policing is something that is for the society, it's for the community. So if you are investigating crime, you talk about inclusiveness. Let people get involved. And if people get involved, there are a lot of people who are not even police officers, but they have so much knowledge in areas that you can tap into and unravel mystery that will shock you. So I will encourage the police to open up. And at least in recruiting, let's look at technical expertise. Let's look at competence. And let's look at how we can beef up the capacity of the Ghana Police Service in the area of the human resource. And we begin to look at the technical aspect. What do we need to be able to make the forensic laboratory up to date? What do we need? Do we need machines? What kind of machines do you require? That if you go and you are talking about ballistic testing, okay? Or you are looking at poison, or probably you go in there and say, oh no, I'm looking at DNA. Do we have what it takes to be able to go in there and get all these results? The scientific nature of policing in the 21st century is what every police institution is looking at. But I believe that as we move forward, the Ghana Police Service, they have to sing their own song. If you think that you don't have the capacity to do something because of some technical reasons, let us know, and we'll be able to support you.
Quick points, very briefly, so we go to Prof and come back to Mr. Tuayabwa. You've mentioned ballistic testing as one of the many things, DNA testing among others. You also mentioned Techiman South. Very quickly, that has gone cold for a while, all the way from how many years ago? And if the police were to reinitiate that investigation, where would they start from? Looking at what Tuayabwa, listening to what Alfred Tuayabwa said about the fact that they were even impeded, and up to a point, they had to stop because they didn't have what it took in the docket. Where would you start from when it comes to Techiman South?
Great. If you look at what happened in Techiman South, this is an operation. In fact, it was not just a crime in vacuum. There was an operation led by the police, National Election Security Task Force. It was during elections. So when you are doing an operational order, there are some anticipations in that order that people will come together. There will be a crowd. The anticipation or the expectation that something untoward can happen is factored into the planning and is factored into the deployment. So when you deploy men, I mean, you cannot deploy men into a particular operational theater and they come back and report that somebody shot, and you can't find the person who shot, that would be strange. If an intruder gets into the theater and shoots, it is the duty of the commander in charge of that particular theater to identify the intruder and deal with the intruder. If you are not able to identify the intruder, probably it is one of your men. If it's not one of your men, but you'll be held accountable. You see, accountability is so high when you have very strict command and control structures. You have deployed 50 men to Tachman-Serve. Somebody is in charge of command. Something untoward happened. It is the duty of the person to write to explain to you how it happened and the suspicions around. If it is not one of his men, it could be somebody else. And who could that person be? It is the commander in charge of that operation who will guide the police investigations to be able to unravel the mystery. But you don't come saying that, oh, we don't know who did this. But somebody was in charge of the operations. And there were some expectations that something like that could happen. So what were you doing? If you can't, probably criminally, if you cannot even investigate, administratively, somebody should be held accountable. And the police should learn to give progress report to the Ghanaian people as to what they do. Transparency is part of modern policing. And if you're able to go that way, I'm thinking all of us will be happy. Whatever it is, we can reconstruct the scene. In criminal investigation, it's possible to reconstruct the scene. When you reconstruct the scene, go back to details and track how it happened. Gradually, you'll begin to see that, oh, probably you missed some point in the beginning.
Okay, all right. Interesting points there, Prof. Of course, that's why I brought in ballistics. Did someone discharge a gun? Did they all come with their bullets intact? What happened? These are all questions that we could answer. But following from what the former Deputy Attorney General, Alfred Tuah-Yeboah, said, do you have any concerns about why we are where we are with these cold cases, Prof? Professor Ening, you'd have to unmute and start again. Please unmute and start again.
Yeah, sure, thank you. 2 points, really. One relates to his concern about the lack of a ballistic report or ballistic experts. And if that is correct, then that poses some very serious problems. If we take the last 20 years or so, firearms-related crimes in Ghana have been on an upward, trend. So if either the police service or the state itself is unwilling or has not invested in our institutional capacity to do ballistic tests, then that is a major problem, a truly major and unacceptable. And therein lies the point made in this directive that I find very useful for the IGP to go back and use all the forensic methodologies that are available to try to unravel these deaths, because they cannot be kept hanging. Recreating a crime scene is so important in refreshing people's memories around what happened, what they may have seen and forgotten, And so there are multiple methodologies that can be used to recreate this scene. Finally, is the issue around public communication. I mean, Alfred Tuah-Yeboah has provided some insights this morning that I think the generality of the Ghanaian public are totally clueless about. The information he has provided this morning, whether to be in the public domain, does not negatively impact the course of justice, but at least it assuages people's sense that they've been left all alone by the state, that the state is uncaring. So there are multiple things that this new investigation can and must do. First, it's about the public information, the consistent, information to the public about wherever they are. Two, look, as an institution, the Ghana Police Service must try to better sing its own song. What are its problems? What does it need? Because we know a couple of years back that there was some investment in the forensic unit. So if crime has transformed and become much more difficult to deal with, then it's important that we equip the service to be able to do what it has to do. Because if you look at the crime, statistics, they are very worrying. And immediately, criminals have a perception that the capacity of the institution to deal with crimes and different types of crimes, then it emboldens those who want to threaten us. That, the chance that I might go scot-free is pretty high. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I think it has started. So we await to read and to hear the state of progress.
I want to broaden the conversation a bit and look at the impact on national security, because you yourself have said it's a serious problem if we don't have, we are not equipped to gather evidence and all that. There's a thin line between being transparent to the general public and saying that we don't have evidence, that's why we are unable to prosecute these criminals, and unintentionally encouraging citizens to take matters into their own hands. So I guess by way of reiterating the gravity of the situation, so the new administration can also take some lessons from this conversation, what should this new administration really focus on in terms of fixing those gaps that exist in terms of evidence gathering, ballistic, like you mentioned, and what should they focus on right now?
Well, for me, institutions must do what they are established to do and must be bold enough. So if we take the Ghana Police Service in this particular case, I think its basic remit is to protect lives and properties. How do they do that? Where are the gaps? We know that they have serious manpower gaps, in terms of the UN-defined number of police officers per 1,000 people. Two, we know that the maintenance culture can be, can definitely be improved. We are talking about issues of forensics and ballistics, so they know what their problems are. I think in terms of the communication, the last 18 months, they've been fairly good in issuing press releases, right, press statements and all that. That keeps us abreast with what they are doing. But you mentioned issues of transparency and encouraging citizens taking the law into their own hands. More information, access to those who can speak on behalf of institutions, a quick response to citizens who flout the law, and the punishment that they get being made known to serve as a deterrent so that others don't take the law into their own hands becomes key. I think from December 8th, we've seen individuals and groups taking the law into their own hands. It is crucial and important that when arrests are made, prosecutions are done, judgments passed, that people know, so that it serves as a deterrent. It's absolutely unacceptable, right, for people who feel wrong to think they can take the law into their own hands. That is a no-no. And I think when we talk about, Honorable Tobu spoke about community policing, we all have a responsibility to provide information, but also for the institutions that are empowered to protect us themselves to behave in ways that builds trust, that builds a sense of acceptability of whatever alternative information people want to provide, and also to protect the identity of individuals who provide this information. Okay. Trust building in recreating, and to use Honorable Tobu's word, resetting the security discourse is very key. People must feel that when they provide information, that information will not leak, that they will be protected and they will be very secure.
Thank you, Prof. Let me give the final word to, on this matter, Mr. Alfred Tuyewa, you have the final word. I'm sure you want to reflect on some of the other things that have come up in the conversation.
Oh, yes, my sister, I think having listened to Honorable Tobu and then Prof, I agree with them that there's a need of always on the part of the police to do crime scene reconstruction. I also know as a fact that the police forensic lab has been retooled. I think there's a need to resolve the police CID to do more. Now, Honorable Tobu, I think he disagrees with me when it comes to this, the AG having its own investigators. I think it's being done in the U.S. U.S. Department of Justice, they have their own investigators. They're able to control investigations, direct them. In our case here, anything that we do with the police, you have to write to them. Sometimes you write to them for dockets. Sometimes it takes months before the docket is even sent to the AG's office because they are not part of the system. But if we were to have one big Department of Justice with the CID as part of the Department of Justice, then if I am the AG or Deputy AG or the DPP and I need information, it's within the same setup and can also direct on what to do. But I think he also is entitled to his opinion, but that's my opinion, that moving forward we have to look at that system. It may work for us.
Mr. Chiayebwa, I agree with both of you. I agree with you to the extent that it will facilitate the process. But he also made the point, Mr. Tobu, that it could also lead to some conflict because then you have all of this within your domain and you may abuse that power, put certain people to the sword, sometimes for political reasons. How do you respond to that?
Yes, you see, if you take the OSP has its own investigators. So are you also saying that OSP was also going to abuse that system? No. If you go to IOCO, they have their own investigators and initiate prosecutions on behalf of the Attorney General. If these two institutions can do it, why can't the AG's office also do it? I think we may have to learn from what is happening in other jurisdictions. For instance, as Honorable Tobu said, we now have police prosecutors doing various prosecutions in the courts. Are they not the very people who are investigating and prosecuting? If that is good, why can it also be good if the AG also has its own investigators? If you go to Kenya as we speak, we do not have police prosecutors. All the prosecutors in Kenya are trained lawyers. They started from somewhere. They've gotten to that stage. I also think that moving forward, all prosecutors in Ghana must be trained lawyers under the office of the Attorney General. And so these are some of the things that we may have to think through and then see how best we can come to a firm conclusion on the way forward.
All right. Mr. Alfred Chiayebwa, we're grateful that you took the time to join us, that you held on. We're very grateful for your time. Alfred Chiayebwa is a former Deputy Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Coming back into the studio, before you even go into Adrian, Atibubu and others, I saw you nodding when he was saying the last bit. Any quick response before Sweetie ushers us into the next belt?
Yes. I think that Alfred Chiayebwa disagreed with me on one angle, that he wouldn't agree with me that police investigators should be distinct from the AG's office. We may probably as a country begin to look at the necessity of having state attorneys attached to all district police commanders. If that happens, right from the district level, you have legal advice on how to proceed with a particular case. It will facilitate the professionalism of policing to the point that even when dockets are built from the district level, before it gets to the regional AG or it gets to the Minister of Justice for prosecution, those dockets are structured in such a way that they become so professionally delivered because there is an Attorney General representative attached to a police district delivering directly effective policing at the district level. It happens somewhere. So if he says that he doesn't agree with me on that angle, I think that we can judge and finally find a middle ground.
I also saw you nodding on when he said that prosecutors ought to be lawyers.
Yes, it's a good thing because we are looking for professionalism. We are looking for the best. If prosecutors ought to be lawyers, I will tell you, all prosecutors should just belong to the Attorney General Department as enshrined in the Constitution. There is something I want to say quickly. You see, when you are looking at the whole criminal justice system, people begin to look at the activator of the criminal justice system, which is the police. And when you activate a particular matter, Crime is activated and investigated by the police. It moves to the court. From the court, it goes to the prisons. Nobody is talking about what we call recidivism. How many people return to prison all of a sudden? People come out of a prison within a year, they are back to prison. Recycled prisoners. And if we don't take care of what happened in prison, that is why we are thinking about changing the psychology of prison in Ghana. Instead of prisons, we say we want to change it to corrections. Let our prisons be places that will go to correct human beings so that they become relevant to our national development. So if you look at what happens in prisons, and the fact that people are serving their prison sentences, they come out and within a year, they want to go back because they feel very comfortable in prisons. Life in prison is better to them than living outside. And why did they go back? They have to commit crime to go back. And we call it recidivism. If we're able to stop that and gradually allow the police to be more preventive in their thinking, we'll be doing a lot of good to this country.
Talking about the police and doing good in this country, I was just saying that there's that thin line between, trusting the public institutions to do the work and citizens taking matters into their own hands. That's what's happening in Ejura and Atebubu. Looks like civilians have taken matters into their own hands. And I want to say that it's because there's a breakdown in trust, right? They don't trust the police to do the work that they're mandated to do for us. But I want to take a quick reflection on what's happening over there. So far, we know that they've raised the police station at Ejura to the ground. They've set the place ablaze. What do you make of it?
Let me first of all express my condolences to the family of the late Masaudu. It's heart-wrenching. It's so sad when I watch the videos and I listen to what happened in Ejura. The truth of the matter is that policing is anchored on 3 Ps. We have policy, we have procedure, and we have practice. Anytime we complain about police misconduct and complain about police having fracas with the community, it has to do with the practice. If the practice is wrong, it probably says that there's something wrong with procedure. And if the procedure is wrong, probably we have to look at the policy again. What is happening in Ejura? Of course, there is no way anybody can support a community to go and burn down a state property. No, that is a no-no. It doesn't matter what hurts you or how you disagree with policing. If you go to the police station, a police officer misconduct himself. There are procedures to ensure that that particular police officer is punished. The police officer do not own the building. In fact, all the police officers in Ejura, they don't own the police building. The police building is for the state. So when you go to destroy that building, in fact, you are infringing pain on the nation that you belong to. In fact, you are hurting yourself because it is your own money they use to construct that. If it is a police officer who has misconducted himself, there are rules and regulations within policing to deal with misconduct because we anticipated that if you have about 50,000 people and 100 of them are untoward, in Tripala, you say, Fibia Mensawum. If you have 100 bad police officers among the 50,000 police officers, of course, all we have to do as a community is to be able to put our heads together, collaborate with the police, so that we can smoke out these bad ones to continue to give the police a very positive image. But what happened in Nigeria is sad. How can you, as a police officer yourself, detain somebody? The arrest procedure is simple. Miranda rules. Tell the person in language it understands the crime he has committed. Tell the person his right. You have a right to a counsel. Tell the person to inform his family. Oh, I'm being detained at this particular police station. In the night when he was being conveyed, the disease was being conveyed at the time to the hospital, you could call a family member. This is what is happening to your brother. This is what is happening to your son. This is what is happening to your husband. And we are quickly conveying him to this particular hospital. A family member could meet you there. And as an eyewitness, if something happens, I am sure that this will have kept what we saw in Ejura. Transparency is important in policing. Building trust is important in policing. But above all, provide policing to a particular community with that particular community style. Community policing is very key. The policing you have or you need in Ejura cannot be the same policing you need in East Legon. You need to understand the community. Understanding the community will let you design a particular policing approach to ensure that there is peace and security in that particular community. But if you probably travel from a very good police officer, very good commander, very professional in East Legon, and you are transferred to Ejura, you need to begin to study this community. The community has its own unique characteristics. If you understand it, and I can remember one police officer, ACP retired Mr. Nuhu Jango. Senior, if wherever you are watching me, I'm so grateful for the job that you've done for the Ghana Police Service before you retired. He was transferred to become the commander of the police service in
so I think
that's Mr. Tobu, just hold for me. Let me bring in Prof on this matter as well, because guess what? In Ejura, for example, this is not the first time we are seeing some incidents. I mean, in the Ashanti region, we had those 7 youth who were killed some time back. Then you can go back to 2021, the issue of Ibrahim Mohammed, a.k.a. Kaka Macho, also in Ejura, and now we are here in this situation one more time. Like Peter Lanshini Tobu has been saying, it appears if you're going to police, what you may put in place, the structures in, let's say, East Legon, may not what you may need in Ejura. What are the dynamics you see there as of now that maybe we are not paying attention to?
Well, I think Honorable Tobu's point about context-specific policing is very key. And your point about what has been happening in Nigeria are very important. Do you remember when the youth clashed with the police, leading to the death of a couple of people? That resulted in a commission of inquiry of sorts, if I remember, that sat in Kumasi and brought out a report, which I haven't seen. But what the recent case tells all of us is that the manner in which particular police community tensions are dealt with must be sustained, transparent, and must have that flexibility also to respond to other emerging issues. I mean, what Honorable Tobu says is ought to be standard practice in policing. When you arrest somebody or you remand somebody, and in the evening, afternoon, morning, night, the person feels unwell and you need to transport that person, basic information contributes to building trust. And when trust breaks down, because the police are perceived to represent the state, then even their infrastructure, the buildings particularly, are then attacked, their vehicles set ablaze as an outpouring of the frustration of the community. This is very unfortunate. And these failures ought not to repeat themselves. Because when the Edria case happened, was it in 21 or so, the response was to ask the COVID response team to go in. A couple of people were shot. The committee was set up, the 3-member committee was set up. But it doesn't seem to have changed anything. The community has not learned from the clashes and from the loss of lives and property. Certainly, the frontline policing approaches have not improved in terms of providing information, dialoguing with the community, and dialoguing with those who are involved. The question now becomes, to what extent can we learn from these situations? Because look, the demographics have changed so much. The frustrations are deepening by the hour. The intolerance of the youth to be pushed around is zero. Their willingness to fight back is very high. So we are looking in appointing people to sensitive jurisdictions who have the capacity to listen, to mediate, to negotiate, and to douse these tensions. Any old style expression of officialdom, here I come, I have power, I can order you about, will simply not work. And I think there's a need for a larger conversation. How do we change, civil military relations? How do we improve police community relations? How do we make community policing much more effective, dialogic, cooperative, that is sensitive to the needs of the people that they seek to serve? Otherwise, unfortunately, we are going to see a lot of this. I have given this government between 9 months to 12 months to be seen to be tackling and dealing with the low-hanging insecurities or the low-hanging fruits relating to insecurity and violence. Otherwise, what we are seeing after 9 months will start becoming the norm, because the frustrations are deep, the mistrust of the state and its institutions present, and our capacity to listen and resolve these problems very weak. So, right. And I said this when it blew up in 21,
right,
that it is going to be symptomatic of how the youth will respond to the state and its representatives. And we still do not seem to have late.
Right. Prof and Mr. Tobu, we're going to wrap up in the next 4 or so minutes on our final issue. If you recall, in 2021, after that committee had been set up, the family called its report and the work done disgraceful. So it means there are still simmering issues that we've not addressed. But sweetie, would you like to take us to the Bono?
Unlike Ejura, where the residents are even rejecting an autopsy and alleging police brutality, the case is different in Atebubu, Amantine. They are saying that the police are looking on while armed robbers are destroying their livelihoods.
Indeed.
And that's what's resulted in, beg your pardon, the violence we saw there as well. But you were in the middle of making a point on Nigeria. Maybe you can add the bit about Amantine to it, and then we can...
And for the sake of time, it would have to be very brief.
Yes, I was just saying that effective policing comes with collaboration with communities. Community policing is one of the policing strategies that can enhance crime control. What is happening in Nigeria and many other places, Nigeria should be treated as a unique community. We need to understand the characteristics of Nigeria and design a policing style that will fit. And let the people of Nigeria understand that the police you find there are our police. The Ghana police, they belong to us. The police also appreciate that they go there to provide a service. If you have a force mentality, police force has been changed many years ago. Since 1975, it's not a police service. If you say have a force mentality, you will not be able to fit in communities like that. Have a service mentality, and I was mentioning Nuhu Jango, Assistant Commissioner of Police, retired. He was deployed to Nema as a commander. He did fantastically well. Nema was a very beautiful place under his command. Police need to up their game, build public police relationship, and decentralize public relations to even the district level. The police service should decentralize public relations to the district level and ensure that people appreciate what the police does. Transparency, trust will be built back, and then gradually information flow will be easier. Because what is happening in Atuba Mountain, people who are robbing are human beings, and the people they rob, they're also human beings. And people get to know who is who. But sometimes they are even afraid to go and provide information to the police. So if you build back that trust, you can go and do the robbery. But they will give you 24 hours, 48 hours. Wherever you go, people will give information and you'll be picked up and dealt with. And when we're able to deal with such people, it will reduce impunity, and gradually this country will be back to a very peaceful track.
How do we manage conflict resolution between police and civilians, like we saw in these two places? What do we need to do? We just need to appreciate the fact that I am serving the community. And if they don't trust me, whatever I do will not be taken. And of course, I also look at my professionalism. Police say service with integrity. If you are really serving with integrity and you are very professional, you will attract the love of the community, and gradually the degree of suspicion that we observe in this relationship will disappear. So it's all about trust. It's all about building your integrity. It's all about being professional, and gradually the public that you are serving will trust that, oh yes, he is here to serve us, not to lord it over us, and not to bully us, and not to brutalize us. And gradually the public will say, this is our police, our beloved police, and every caller will actually become a potential ally. More to the point I was trying to get from you, though, how do we rebuild trust? Because this is a breakdown of trust. This is a result of the people not trusting these institutions enough to, deliver on these mandates. So how do we rebuild trust that has already been broken?
You cannot rebuild trust using the same variables. The police who are in Ejura, for example, if you want to rebuild trust, you need to change the face of the police. Probably you need to take the commander away. Somebody needs to go in there and build a relationship between the two institutions, the community and the police, using new faces. And particularly, it wasn't for nothing that they recommended that the commander in the Ejura case in the past was supposed to be moved away. Because when you bring in a new face, and you train this new face to appreciate the fact this is a new community, it has some unique characteristics, study it properly, and probably present a different picture to the community, they'll begin to appreciate you. After all, we are all human beings. If you have 10 police officers and one appear to be bad, it doesn't mean that the 9 will also be bad. Just change and let the person go with a change mentality. And gradually, you begin to see that what I'm doing is different from what you experienced in the past. The trust will begin to come back slowly. And the community also, you have to use community leaders. I mean, if you go to Nima, for instance, as I was telling you, during the time of Nuhu Jango, if somebody commits a crime, Nuhu Jango doesn't go to Nima to arrest anybody. He just call 1 or 2 people and they will bring the person. Because they trusted him that he was going to do what was right. Building trust is anchored on being professional.
Thank you so much. Should we give the final word to Prof? Prof, in about 1 minute or less, let me get a wrap of your thoughts for us.
I think I agree with the Honorable Tobu. It's about trust building, recognizing that mistakes have been made, that we take responsibility for those mistakes, but we are also willing to bring about change. That context specificity, knowing the community that you are serving, talking to those who matter, and then creating channels and opportunities for communication and frequent meetings will reduce all these tensions and hopefully build a stable, functional society that we are all looking for.
Thank you so much, Prof. Those who join us for the conversation in studio, we had Peter Lancheni Tobu. He's Member of Parliament for Wa West, and of course via Zoom, Professor Kwesieni, a security consultant. We also spoke to former Deputy Attorney General Alfred Tuah Yeboah, and helping us to put these security matters in perspective. Ben, what's coming up next?
When we return, if there were to be a fire in your community, would the fire service have what it takes to actually douse that fire? Recently, there was a Tichiman Market incident, and we know that there were no fire tenders to douse the flames. But the Ghana National Fire Service has had its own rebuttal. They are saying their firefighting capacity is impeded. Their hands are tied. It's difficult dealing with the situation. When we return, we'll delve into that issue with some specifics on what the logistical constraints are for the Ghana National Fire Service and how we can cure this menace of frequent fires. That conversation after the break. Do stay.